Part 26. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 251. Chapter 251 How to Absorb. Xianxia lowered his head and looked at the snowflakes in his hand. Xuanhuan's slender, jade-like hands had distinct joints. The snowflakes that fell in his palm had not melted, and were as clear as a piece of carved white jade. She stretched out her fingers and touched the snowflakes, and the snowflakes fell into Xuanhuan's palm in a scattered shape, but they still did not melt. "Your palm is hot, why don't these snowflakes melt?" Xianxia asked doubtfully. Xuanhuan saw snow for the first time in his life. If Xianxia hadn't said anything, he wouldn't have realized that such cold things as snowflakes should melt when they fell into his warm palms. He twirled it with his fingers. The snowflakes were still in pieces and had not melted into water droplets. With a thought, Xianxia threw a bunch of flames, which fell on the snow in front of her. The flames burned, but the snow still did not melt. This scene where snow and fire get along extremely harmoniously seems a bit unreal no matter how you look at it. This is too abnormal. Is snow that cannot be melted by fire still snow? Xianxia knew very well how powerful her flames were. Her flames were the 5 elements beads, the flames of the fire beads. She did not use her own fire power to create the flames. Xuanhuan's phoenix eyes flashed through deep thoughts, and he saw the unusualness of Xianxia's flame. There is only snow here, and the chance must be related to the snow. Now that we have discovered that the snow is unusual, we must be more vigilant next time. Xianxia nodded, and the two continued to walk side by side and move forward. The sky is getting darker and darker, the wind and snow are getting heavier and heavier, and the temperature is getting lower and lower. The two still need to use their spiritual energy to resist the cold. Xuanhuan secretly thought to himself that it would be great if they could meet a spiritual beast, even a monster. They were in urgent need of a fur coat like the one they met before to keep out the cold. The sky turned completely dark, and the temperature of the snowfield dropped below their expectations. "I wonder if the temperature will continue to drop." Xianxia estimated that the temperature was more than 30 degrees below zero. At this time, she missed the thermometer from another life. It was too convenient. Little things that I didn't pay attention to before are now indispensable here. Xuanhuan looked solemn and said, "It's only night now. I guess the temperature will drop to its lowest point late at night." Xianxia was also a little worried. If the temperature dropped further, it might reach -40 or 50 degrees. The two of them just wore a few extra layers of single clothes and couldn't survive such a temperature. It is impossible to last long if spiritual power is used like this. Suddenly she realized that her Danshan usually began to absorb spiritual energy for cultivation. Why didn't it absorb spiritual energy today? The spiritual energy here was very strong. Is it because the nascent soul is wrapped? She tried to absorb the spiritual energy and found a fact that made her heart feel cold. The spiritual energy here could not be absorbed. Resisting the cold requires spiritual power. If they cannot absorb spiritual energy to replenish their spiritual power now, then they will either run out of spiritual power. Without spiritual power, let alone what to do if they encounter danger, even if they cannot resist the cold, they will also be frozen alive. Die. She quickly said to Xuanhuan, "Have you noticed that we cannot absorb the spiritual energy here for cultivation?" Xuanhuan had tried it a long time ago and was looking for the reason, so he didn't tell her. Seeing that she had already discovered it, he said, "I also discovered it, and I am looking for the reason." "Have you found it?" Xianxia still admired Xuanhuan's strength and ability. Xuanhuan couldn't possibly have missed something that she could discover. After hearing what he said and looking for the reason, she felt a little hopeful. She didn't see anything, but that didn't mean Xuanhuan couldn't see it. "I have some clues. Let's try it and see if it's right." Xuanhuan naturally took her hand and squatted down. Xianxia didn't mind being held by his hand again, squatting next to him and looking at the snow on the ground. How are we going to try? The spiritual energy here is very strong, but we can't absorb it. But I found that every snowflake contains rich spiritual energy. Xuanhuan pointed to the snow on the ground. Xianxia naturally sensed that the snow here did contain spiritual energy, but what did it have to do with their inability to absorb spiritual energy? Xuanhuan picked up a handful of snow and held it in front of Xianxia's eyes. Look. Xianxia stared at the snow with her big apricot eyes. The snow here was very special. Each snowflake seemed to be independent. Even the snowflakes crushed by them were broken into granular, ragged, like snow-white sand. Looking closer, she found that there seemed to be spiritual energy surging in the clear snowflakes. There seems to be spiritual energy flowing inside, Xianxia said. Xuanhuan nodded. Yes, I discovered it when I crushed the snowflake before. Xianxia and Xuanhuan looked at each other. So. Xuanhuan smiled, with a world-famous handsome face and a bright smile. Even wearing a red scarf could not hide his charm. Xianxia blinked and quickly looked away, feeling that she could no longer look at Xuanhuan like this. Sooner or later, she would be tempted by his face. We cannot directly absorb the spiritual energy in the air. What if we absorb the spiritual energy in the snowflakes? Xuanhuan reminded her. Xianxia's apricot eyes suddenly lit up. I'll give it a try. Xuanhuan stopped her. I'll try first. He was worried that if there was something wrong with the aura inside, he would hurt her again. Xianxia didn't argue with him. She was an alchemist and had superb medical skills. If he hurt herself, she could still save him. If she was hurt, he would not see him and he would have the ability to save her. Xuanhuan naturally understands this. Xuanhuan held a large handful of snow in both hands, closed his eyes, and entered the world of snow with his spiritual consciousness, and began to absorb the spiritual energy inside. He succeeded in the first try, and it was easy to absorb. He guessed correctly. The snow in his hands, after he absorbed the spiritual energy, turned into a puddle of water, flowed down from his hands and fell to the ground, submerging into the thick layer of snow. Snowflakes that have been touched by snow water show no signs of melting, as if they have never encountered water. Xianxia was surprised when she saw the changes in front of her. Why did it turn into water? Can it absorb spiritual energy? Xianxia asked. Okay, it's easy to absorb. It just requires the use of spiritual consciousness. After the absorption is complete, I feel clear and bright. At first, I thought that my body would be very cold after absorbing the spiritual energy in it, but I didn't expect that it would feel very comfortable. Xuanhuan, my heart was relaxed. No matter whether there are other opportunities here, the most important thing is to survive first. I'll give it a try too. Xianxia immediately imitated Xuanhuan's example, holding a large handful of snow in both hands, closing her eyes and absorbing the spiritual energy inside. When the snow in her hand turned into water and drained away, her apricot eyes suddenly opened, and she said with a flowery smile, "Sure enough, do you feel that after absorbing the spiritual energy in it, you don't feel so cold anymore?" End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 252. Chapter 252. The Reason for Not Learning. Indeed, it seems that not only did we find a way to absorb spiritual energy, but we also found a real way to keep out the cold. Xuanhuan also smiled. As long as you do not consume spiritual energy that is lower than the cold, there is no possibility of running out of spiritual energy and freezing to death. The spiritual energy can be absorbed, but we can't stay here and absorb the spiritual energy all the time, right? Xianxia asked, looking at the vast snowy field. Their purpose is to find an opportunity to get out of the snow field. If they keep absorbing spiritual energy here, how can they get out and find an opportunity? Yan Xianglou is not worried about herself. After all, she can do three things at once. It is not difficult for her to absorb spiritual energy while walking. She is worried about Jizhong. After all, it seems that Jizhong is not someone who likes to find shortcuts to practice like her. Jizhong told her to stand up. We can absorb the spiritual energy while walking, so that we don't waste any time. Yan Xianglou was stunned. He could also absorb spiritual energy while walking? Thinking about his methods, it was clear that he must not be what she seemed. The best thing to do is to stop in one place to absorb spiritual energy and practice. After all, their ultimate goal is to find the opportunity here, and then leave here and reach the real higher continent. However, even if she was absorbing spiritual energy while walking, bending down to hold the snow was too troublesome, so she simply used her consciousness to wrap a large piece of snow in front of her and absorb it. In any case, spiritual consciousness is needed to help absorb spiritual energy, so it doesn't matter if you use more. However, the sudden appearance of a large piece of water directly in front of her still hindered her walking. When she used her consciousness to control the snow, she moved to her side so that it would not affect the two of them as they continued to move forward. Jizhong didn't want to bend down to hold the snow. Like Yan Xianglou, he used his spiritual consciousness to directly control the snow to absorb the spiritual energy. Both of them were shocked by each other's powerful consciousness, and they were also shocked that the other could actually do two things at once. In this way, the two of them walked and absorbed the spiritual energy in the snow. An hour passed, and Yan Xianglou stopped to absorb it. The spiritual energy is indeed pure and rich, but practicing this way takes too much effort, Yan Xianglou complained. Jizhong comforted her calmly. You will feel comfortable if you think that when we absorb spiritual energy, we are also cultivating spiritual consciousness. Thinking to himself, this girl's spiritual consciousness is actually so strong. She even used it for an hour like him and she didn't feel tired. Although she complained, she didn't feel any fatigue due to excessive consumption of consciousness. Yan Xianglou felt a little ashamed after hearing his words. It's because my realm is narrow. People in the world say that spiritual consciousness is innate and difficult to improve. That is because they dare not use too much spiritual consciousness for fear of over-consuming it and becoming a fool. However, she has experienced it personally. The more spiritual consciousness is consumed, the more spiritual consciousness is consumed, the stronger it becomes after recovery. If your realm is narrow, how could you come to the high continent at the age of 16? Didn't you see how surprised the man before was when he saw us? That's what he did. He would naturally be surprised to see people from the low continent. There will be less. Naturally, they are not surprised because we came to the higher continent. They should be surprised by our age when we came here. Yan Xianglou just said it casually, but she didn't expect that he would take it seriously. She was not belittling herself, she was just being modest. Jizhong actually stated so solemnly that her realm was not narrow at all. Yan Xianglou smiled and said, when you praise me like this, it's easy for me to get carried away. Then you underestimate your own concentration. Jizhong looked at the living person in front of him, remembering how embarrassed she was when they first met, how she wisely negotiated terms with him when they met again, how she calmly detoxified herself, and how she was able to talk to him now. Talk and laugh freely by yourself. In his eyes, her changes were vastly different. The closer he got to her and the more he understood her, the more she attracted him. You know me better than I know myself. Yan Xianglou glanced at Jizhong. Speaking of her own character, Yan Xianglou herself cannot define it. After all, her soul lives in two separate worlds. And her personalities in the two worlds are completely different. The body that left the soul living with her parents is still cheerful and naughty. After all, she has the bottomless love of her parents. She is a happy little girl. But after her parents left, no one pampered her anymore, forcing her to mature early. As for the body of the soul in the other world, because she is always sick, she has no parents to protect her, and her family does not want to see her. Only her grandmother loves her, so her personality is dull, quiet, and a little indifferent. After her soul returned to one body, she had no chance to release her true nature due to endless training and study, and dealing with various emergencies. On the contrary, during the time she was with Xuanhuan, she seemed to feel a little relaxed and slowly released her hidden nature. If it weren't for what Xuanhuan said just now, she wouldn't have realized that her character was still based on her life experience in this world. The life of another life is in her memory, and it seems to have become a real memory unconsciously. Xianxia once again lamented how powerful her mother was in the power of controlling souls. At the same time, she also thought of the inherited power of soul-controlling skills that she inherited. The reason why she has not learned it is not because she is afraid of the power of soul control, but because of the responsibility she has to bear. Xianxia doesn't know whether she can shoulder this responsibility. Her original intention is to pursue strength freely and take the path of the strong. She doesn't like being restrained, she doesn't like a predetermined life, and she doesn't like taking on the responsibility of saving people for no reason. She doesn't think she has that kind of strength and realm. Although it is only for emergencies, if such a powerful soul-controlling technique exists, there must be a need for its existence. Heaven will not allow unreasonable things to exist normally. Therefore, she has been avoiding this problem for the past month, so she has not learned the power of soul control. She would not make a decision blindly before thinking about it clearly. This was a common habit she had when living in different bodies in two worlds. Xuanhuan noticed her sudden depression. He didn't know the reason, so he didn't speak to comfort her, but he changed the topic and diverted her thoughts. "Do you know how to find your parents?" Xuanhuan asked. I felt a little envious that she was about to reunite with her parents. She still had relatives around, but he was alone. Xianxiangluo's thoughts were indeed brought back by his words. She shook her head and said, "I don't know. Let's wait until we go out from here to inquire about the situation on the mainland." She had a plan in mind. If she couldn't find out the news about her parents and master after going out, she was going to meet her sworn brother Tianjun first and ask him to help find out the news about her parents and master. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 253. Chapter 253 His Secret. Tianjun left her a token. He said that he would know when she arrived in the higher continent. I don't know if Tianjun knows now, or he will have to wait until Xuanhuan comes to know. But she didn't want to tell Xuanhuan this idea. After all, Xuanhuan cultivated the righteous path, while Tianjun practiced the demonic path. Although she doesn't care about the righteous path or the demonic path, it doesn't mean that other righteous monks don't care. She doesn't understand Xuanhuan, and she can't have 100% trust in him. She doesn't want to cause any trouble or danger to her sworn brother because of herself. What plans do you have in the future? Xianxiangluo asked. Xuanhuan was stunned. Plan. Originally there was, but it was all disrupted by her appearance. I want to find the inheritance of the Ji family. Xuanhuan thought for a while and said. No matter how things change, he has to do this. This is his mission as a descendant of the Ji family. The Ji family is inherited from the higher continent. Do you mean to say that the royal family of the Tianshan Empire comes from the higher continent? Xianxiangluo was surprised. Xuanhuan nodded. This is the secret of the Ji family, which is only passed down orally among each generation of emperors. In my generation, because I awakened the blood of the Ji family, my father told me, and this secret of the Ji family is the Tianshan Empire has come to an end. Yan Xiongluo finally understood why no one in the royal family of Tianshan Empire knew Xuanhuan, but Ji Zhozhong had a copy of such a high-level Xuanhuan technique in his hands, and the name of the technique was Ji Yin, which was passed down from generation to generation in their Ji family. Is it related to Xuanhuan? Yan Xiongluo asked. Yes, I don't know how many years the Ji family has been living in the lower continent, and I don't know how they came down. Before the Ji family established the Tianshan Empire, it was passed down from generation to generation among the successive family heads. There have been countless how many generations have passed. Therefore, the original purpose has been changed by word of mouth. There is only one useful sentence left to my father. The descendants of the awakened Ji family bloodline must return to the higher continent to find the Ji family inheritance. Inheritance. The Ji Yin technique suddenly appeared in front of me after I awakened my bloodline. Apart from me, only you can read and learn this technique. Yan Xiongluo did not expect that Ji Zhozhong would have such a heavy burden on him, nor did he expect that the Ji seal that Ji Zhozhong gave him would be so magical. No one could read or learn it except him, so why could he read and learn it? Yan Xiongluo did not think deeply about this question and asked again, the higher continent is so big, where can we find the inheritance of the Ji family? Are there any Ji family members in the higher continent? Are there no clues for you? Yan Xiongluo felt that even a low-level continent in the Tianqian continent was already that big, and that a high-level continent with many affiliated low-level continents would be larger in size without even thinking about it. If there are no clues at all, and the Ji family has disappeared in the higher continent for so long, how can Ji Zhozhong find it? Ji Zhozhong smiled bitterly, there are no other clues. He didn't know whether there were people from other bloodlines of the Ji family here. Yan Xiongluo was speechless. Should I say you are lucky, or too pitiful? That's not true, Ji Zhozhong said in a funny tone. It is precisely because he awakened the bloodline of the Ji family that his cultivation talent is stronger, and he can survive the fetal poison in his body until it is detoxified, and he has the opportunity to come here. Yan Xiongluo sighed. If she could help, she would help. That was all she could do. She should help him pay attention in the future. Xuanhuan master is a noble and mysterious profession even in the higher continent. Since your family has a heritage, you will not be an unknown person in the higher continent before. If you check slowly, there will always be news, Yu Xiongluo comforted. Ji Zhozhong said. Ji Zhozhong agreed with what Yan Xiongluo said. In fact, he was not worried about not finding the inheritance of the Ji family. After all, he had awakened the blood of the Ji family. As long as he encountered the inheritance, he would feel it. What he was worried about was why the Ji family would be exiled to the lower continent, whether there were any enemies in the higher continent, and other possibilities he could think of. He didn't know anything about it, and he didn't feel good about this situation where the enemy was in the dark and he was in the light. But he didn't tell Yan Xiongluo this, not wanting her to worry. Although Yan Xiongluo may not necessarily worry about him now. Let's take it one step at a time. Since I have awakened the inheritance of the Ji family, I will not be asked to come back and die, Ji Zhozhong said, pretending to be relaxed. It's useless to think about anything now. Let's just absorb spiritual energy and improve our cultivation. Yan Xiongluo didn't want to talk about this unsolvable topic anymore. Strength is the root of all problems. That's right, what's the opportunity in the snow field? Ji Zhozhong asked while absorbing the spiritual energy. Yan Xiongluo watched the puddles of water they left behind disappear under the thick snow. I'm more curious about where the water went. How thick is the snow under our feet? Ji Zhozhong stopped when he heard this and looked at the snow under his feet. If Yan Xiongluo hadn't raised this question, he really wouldn't have considered how thick the snow was under his feet. Digging and giving it a try, Ji Zhozhong asked tentatively. I always feel that it is a bit naive to do this. If I don't do it, I won't find anything else. Anyway, There is no other way of thinking. It's better to follow the little girl's idea. Her luck has been very good in the past 3 years. Yan Xianglou nodded, okay, but we don't have the tools to dig, so what should we use to dig? Ji Zhong glanced at her, have you forgotten that we are all sect-level cultivators now? If he were in a lower continent, he would have dared to add the word strong, but after listening to what the man said before, he automatically classified the two of them as weak. Yan Xianglou stuck out her tongue, I really forgot. When she mentioned cultivation, she also thought of that man's disdain, and felt a little aggrieved. Whenever she became stronger, there were always facts proving that she was still weak. Ji Zhong smiled when he saw her aggrieved look, I'll give it a try. Yan Xianglou didn't fight with him, but she just used some spiritual power, so she stood aside and watched, not forgetting to absorb the spiritual energy in the snow. Ji Zhong raised his hand and slashed the snow in front of him with a stream of spiritual power. Although he only used 3/3 of his strength, he was a sect-level practitioner, and 3/3 of his strength was not small when he was using it to chop the snow. With a bang, more than 10 meters of snow rose up from the snow in front of him. When the snow was lifted up, Ji Zhong waved out another spiritual power and pushed all the lifted snow aside with his spiritual power. A huge snow pit suddenly appeared in front of the two of them, 5 or 6 meters deep. Yan Xianglou looked at the bottom of the snow pit and was stunned. There was still snow underneath, and there was no trace of land at all. He raised his eyes to look at Ji Zhong, then looked at the snow under his feet. Why do I suddenly feel no sense of security at all? End of this chapter. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 254. Are you worried about falling? Ji Zhong glanced at her. A little bit. Yan Xianglou raised her foot and stepped on it hard, it's quite strong. I don't think it will fall down. Ji Zhong raised his hand and waved a burst of spiritual power, running towards the bottom of the snow pit. He wanted to see how thick the snow was here. Yan Xianglou instinctively hid behind to avoid falling into the snow pit and being buried alive by the snow. Ji Zhong dug down one after another until he dug 15 or 6 meters before giving up. We shouldn't be able to dig to the bottom, Ji Zhong came to the conclusion. Yan Xianglou also discovered that the snow cannot be so thick. If it accumulates over time, it will become thicker and thicker. After a long time, it will pile up to the sky. So, there must be some secret here? Ji Zhong glanced at the snow pit and said, there must be monsters if something goes wrong. Yan Xianglou understood what he meant, what should I do with this pit? Ji Zhong waved his hand and used his spiritual power to add back the dug snow. Although I feel that even if I don't add the snow back, the snow pit will soon be filled with wind and snow, but in order to avoid unnecessary accidents, I still add it. What if there are people who are new here like them, and get here before the snow pit is filled up, and cannot see the road clearly in the wind and snow, and fall in? After filling the snow pit, the two of them continued to walk forward while absorbing the spiritual energy. They didn't say anything anymore. They both understood it carefully and looked for their own opportunities here. One night passed, and when the day dawned, the wind and snow gradually abated. By noon, the wind and snow had stopped. It seems that the wind and snow here are regular. The wind and snow begin towards the evening, and get stronger as it gets darker. The wind and snow are at their heaviest at midnight. Once midnight passes, the wind and snow gradually become smaller from the early morning of the next day, and stop at noon. And then it starts to snow again in the evening, entering the next cycle. At noon, when the wind and snow stop, it is also the warmest time of the day in the snow field. Although they no longer feel cold since they started absorbing spiritual energy, they still feel the change in temperature very clearly. Calculating the time, they had been in the snow field for a whole day, but they had no clue about their opportunity. At this moment, the snow field welcomed another newcomer, a woman. If Yan Xianglou and Ji Zhong see her, they will definitely be surprised, because this person is none other than someone they both know, Qin Suiyu. Especially Yan Xianglou will be even more surprised. After all, she gave Qin Suiyu the spirit-breaking pill, and she has no chance to come to the higher continent. Now that Qin Suiyu is here, it means that she should have obtained the spiritual spring, otherwise she would not be able to undo the effect of the spirit-breaking pill. Even if she had unlocked the spirit-breaking pill, with her talent she would not have come to the higher continent so early. She must be in her 40s. Coming to the higher continent so early, there must be some kind of opportunity, but it's hard to say whether this opportunity is the right way. The man who received Qin Suiyu was still the man who received the two of them. When he saw Qin Suiyu's appearance, his eyes lit up. What kind of luck do you have? He actually met beautiful women again and again. Although the one today is not as beautiful as the one yesterday, her appearance is still a first-class beauty. At this time, Qin Suiyu was still a little confused. Is this the advanced continent she had been waiting for? Why is it all snow? It was still so cold, so different from the cultivation paradise she imagined. Before he could recover, a man appeared. Qin Suiyu squinted her eyes. The men in front of her looked at her with bewildered expressions. For her now rich experience, she knew too well what these men's eyes meant. If it weren't for these men, she wouldn't be able to come to the higher continent. When she saw such a man, it was like seeing a spiritual energy tank. She immediately smiled brightly, with a hint of charm in her eyebrows, and said in a soft voice, "Senior, this little lady comes from Tianqian continent, right? I don't know anything here, so I asked the seniors to give me some advice." The little girl is very grateful. The man was immediately confused by Qin Suiyu's smile and voice. Originally, he wanted to see if he could get some benefits and send her to his master, but now his idea has changed. Anyway, a man and a woman have been sent there, and they are still top quality. This one is a little worse. Keep it for yourself and enjoy. Then it depends on how grateful you are to me, the man said intentionally. His eyes and the tone of his words made Qin Suiyu understand what he meant, and immediately walked over, holding the man's hand with her beautiful hand, leaning against the man's body, and said shyly, "Senior, do you think this is okay? She worked hard to get here. In her heart, nothing is as important as strength, and these men are the stepping stones for her to embark on the road to becoming a strong person. The more the better, and they will not refuse anyone who comes. After all, she has gained from them a huge benefit. What's more, this man's strength is still the highest among the men she has come into contact with. In the future, she will meet even higher ones, Ji Zhong, Yan Xianglou, you wait, it is not certain who will rule the world here." Qin Suiyu witnessed what happened when Ji Zhong and Yan Xianglou came here. She was also one of the people hiding in the dark and watching. However, at that time, she still had a little chance to break through to the clan level, so she could only watch. The two of them left before her. In a fit of anger, she found an opportunity on the second day, so she came only one day later than the two of them. When the man saw Qin Suiyu's appearance, there was nothing he didn't understand. She was unstable. He cursed in his heart, "It's better to be a monk here if you meet a rag." He immediately put his arm around her waist and hugged her in my arms, great. After saying that, she hugged the person and disappeared into the wind and snow, leaving only Qin Suiyu's charming laughter. Shortly after Qin Suiyu and the man disappeared, another figure appeared on the snowy field. This person was still recognized by Yan Xianglou. It was Miao Chang'ai, who was abandoned by the Miao family who exterminated the Xuanhuan sect. If Ji Zhong and Yan Xianglou were to visit, they would definitely find that something was wrong with the aura on his body. It was somewhat similar to the aura on Qin Suiyu's body, but not exactly the same. It can only be said that he was quite lucky. It happened that the man was seduced by Qin Suiyu, and he avoided the man's plan by some strange combination of circumstances. Although Miao Nagano was also surprised that there was a vast snowfield behind the thick fog, he only stopped for a moment and walked forward. While walking and looking, I saw a woman who came in just now. Why did her kung fu disappear now? Yes, Miao Changjai happened to see Xianxia leaving when he arrived at Tianqian Kyogu. He came immediately and wanted to have a companion with him. Unexpectedly, after such a short period of time, the woman disappeared. He was wondering, didn't it mean that no one in Tianqian continent had been able to ascend and leave for hundreds of years? Why did he feel that ascending was like visiting a relative? The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 255. Miao Changjai, who was hiding in Tibet, didn't know that Yan Xiongluo had already arrived at the higher continent before him. He felt very proud that he had come to the higher continent when he was only 18 years old, and finally surpassed those of Yan Xiongluo and Xuanhuan section. Where are the people? I don't know if his luck ran out or something. Although he avoided the man's plan, the direction he chose was exactly the direction that the man pointed out to Yan Xiongluo for them to go. If he didn't change direction midway, the outcome could be imagined. At this time, Yan Xiongluo and Ji Zhizhong didn't know that two more unexpected people had arrived in Tianqian continent. At this time, the two of them were sitting on the snow and eating. Although the zone level cultivation level allowed them not to eat, Yan Xiongluo was used to eating every day. This was the first meal since yesterday. Ji Zhizhong didn't really want to eat here, but seeing that she wanted to eat, he ate with her. Yan Xiongluo was not in the habit of eating cold food, so she heated the food with a flame. She felt that cooking here was so easy, aside from other things. She had her own fire spiritual root flame, and later I got the 5 elements pearl fire bead again, and the flames improved to a higher level. Not only did the alchemy become more refined, my cooking skills became stronger as well. Eating the hot meal, Ji Zhizhong seemed to have gone back to the meal that Xian shamelessly fetched from Yu Xiongluo when he went to Xuanhuan sect to seek medical treatment. It was as delicious as the current meals, and he knew that these meals were all cooked by Yan Xiongluo herself. During the month that Yan Xiongluo accompanied Master Qin He, she not only cooked a lot of meals for Master Qin He, but also prepared some for herself. Unexpectedly, she would use them as soon as she arrived. You like cooking very much? Ji Zhizhong asked. Yan Xiongluo shook her head. It's not that I like cooking, but I like eating. But no one can make the food I like, so I have to do it myself. Actually, I didn't like cooking in another life. It was because my health was too poor and I couldn't do much. I happened to like to eat, so I learned to cook. Unexpectedly, I was quite talented in cooking. After returning here, she was the only one left in the family, so naturally she still had to cook for herself. Coupled with her cultivation and the talent of the 5 spiritual roots, her cooking skills became even better. Ji Zhizhong's mouth twitched after hearing her words. No wonder people say that people who love to eat are good at cooking. There is a living example in front of him. Because he loves to eat, he has to force himself to develop strong cooking skills. After eating, the two of them were not in a hurry to get up and continue on their way. The reason is very simple. It is impossible to tell the direction here. Even if it is daytime, the sun cannot be seen. If I take out the guide, it is completely disabled here, and I cannot distinguish the north, south, east, or west at all. The two of them turned around in a circle, but neither of them knew which direction they were going in the first place. Under such circumstances, if they continue on their way, they are likely to take the wrong road. If by some mistake they end up where the man said, they will be in danger. After all, people didn't take their clan level cultivation level seriously at all. It was obvious that the people there were higher than their cultivation level and could easily defeat them. What should we do? Can we only practice here? Yan Xiongluo said speechlessly. Even the extremely smart Xuanhuan didn't know how to find the opportunity to get out of the snow field. Don't think too much. There is no wind and snow at this time. We might as well meditate to sort out our mood and calm ourselves down. Maybe we can find our own opportunities, Xuanhuan suggested. Now neither of them have any good ideas, and the only advantage for them here is that they have found a way to absorb spiritual energy. Then they might as well calm down and absorb spiritual energy first, and then improve their realm. Maybe they can find it. Own opportunities. The snowfield will not exist for no reason. It must be a kind of training for people like them who come from the lower continent. It will be of great benefit to them. This opportunity cannot be wasted. And he felt that they might not be able to leave the snowfield if they didn't find an opportunity. Yan Xiangloo knew that what he said was right. The experience of this day had made their mood less calm than when they first arrived. It was unlikely that they would find an opportunity in such a mood, so it was better to sit down and settle their mood. For safety reasons, the two sit cross-legged back to protect each other. When they came here, none of Yan Xiangloo's spiritual pets came out. Yuntuan and Zetian refused to go out and experience the low temperature outside. They both said that as long as Yan Xiangloo was not in danger, they would never go out. Yuan Xiangloo was naturally reluctant to let her spiritual pet suffer. The clouds were better. They were protected by a body of fur. Even though they were covering the sky, they were also plants. This vast snowfield was really not suitable for them to come out. The two of them sat cross-legged and closed their eyes, absorbing the spiritual energy and tempering their mental state at the same time. When the heart truly calmed down, Yan Xiangloo, who could multi-purpose three things, suddenly remembered the divine bead that he had not yet finished refining. At this time, he could not do anything else. He absorbed spiritual energy, tempered his mind, and refined the divine bead. It just so happens that her multitasking ability is not wasted at all. Coming to the higher continent is one step closer to the 9 heavens. Even if the divine beads are difficult to refine, she still has to refine them before going to the 9 heavens. With the thought, the divine bead appeared in her consciousness. She continued to wrap the divine bead with her divine consciousness and began to refine it. Now not only does it require the use of spiritual consciousness to absorb spiritual energy, but it also requires the use of spiritual consciousness to refine the divine beads. It can be seen how quickly the spiritual consciousness is consumed. No matter how powerful her consciousness is, she can't bear to use it like this. Therefore, whenever she feels a little tired, she immediately stops using her consciousness and starts to restore it at the same time. After all, they don't know much about this place. Although it looks like there is nothing but snow, it doesn't mean that there are no unknown dangers. When all her consciousness is restored, she will continue to use her consciousness to absorb spiritual energy and refine the divine beads. After doing this several times, she found that her spiritual consciousness space had expanded again, and the use of her spiritual consciousness lasted longer and longer. Moreover, the refined consciousness absorbs spiritual energy faster, and the speed of refining the divine beads is also faster. Although it is not as fast as the speed at which she first obtained the divine beads for refining, it is much faster than being stagnant and unable to refine. The eyes of Xianxia became more and more clear, as if he wanted to be able to see clearly what was inside. This also made her understand why the divine beads are becoming more and more difficult to refine, because the deeper you go in, the stronger the power becomes. This discovery made her forget about other things and that she was still in the snow field. The purpose was to find her own opportunity and leave the snow field. She devoted herself selflessly to refining the divine beads. How could she miss such an opportunity? Xuanhuan, who was back to back with her, was also immersed in a certain state. Several days passed, and Yan Xiangloo and Xuanhuan did not move. They were buried in the wind and snow. At first, 2 human figures could be seen, but now only a small snow hill could be seen. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 256. If someone passes by here, they may not be able to sense their presence. 10 days have passed, half a month has passed, a month has passed. Xianxia was immersed in the refining beads and had no idea that so long had passed. A month later, she finally completely refined the divine bead. She was very excited and wanted to know what the magic was about the refined divine bead. After all, it was something that people from the 9 heavens could fight for, the miraculous divine bead that was passed down in the dream. Now that she has refined it, does it mean that she can get the opportunity in the divine bead? I remember that there were legends about divine beads circulating in dreams. It is said that the divine beads were formed at the beginning of the world, and they contain endless aura and vitality. Those who obtain the divine beads will find it easy to practice and can run rampant in the 9 heavens. If you can get the divine pearl to recognize its owner and refine it, you can get a mysterious opportunity. In the dream, the soul cultivators in the 3,000 small worlds under the 9 heavens also knew the legend about the divine beads, and the legends became more and more outrageous. Many people were looking for the divine beads and dreamed of reaching the sky in one step. Now it seems that this 3,000 small world refers to a world like the higher continent. Xianxia spent a drop of her heart and soul when she thought about her contract with the divine bead. After refining it for so long, it was finally time for the divine bead to be returned to her. Her consciousness was staring closely at the crystal clear rotating divine bead in her consciousness. Suddenly, the divine bead lit up, and purple light burst out from the divine bead. For an instant, her divine consciousness was enveloped by the purple light, and a wave of lethargy, her comfortable breath filled the air, so that she could no longer see the divine bead. At this moment, the Pangu space suddenly shook. Xianxia's heart was trembling, and her consciousness quickly looked at the Pangu space. Why are you joining in the fun at this time? At this sight, she was stunned. Because the divine bead appeared in Pangu space, the Pangu space, which had been dark and without light, became brighter with the vibration. Immediately, the wind blew, rain fell, and snow drifted, just like the 4 seasons of the year. The space changes from bright to dark and then to bright again, which is a cycle throughout the day. The land where no plants had ever grown seemed to be enchanted. Various green plants emerged from the soil, and then sprouted and grew rapidly as if fast forward was used. In the blink of an eye, the space was filled with darkness. It's as if it's been given life and is full of life everywhere. The various medicinal herbs she planted in the soil before grew like crazy as if they had been poured with vitality. There were many medicinal herbs that were thousands of years old, but now they are even older. And the spiritual energy is more intense. If this is used as an elixir and used as medicine, the effect can be imagined. The space seems to have been expanded. In the distance, there are mountains, dense trees, and a wide river flowing through the mountains. Had Xianxia not witnessed the changes in Pangu space with her own eyes, she would have doubted whether what she saw was still her Pangu space. She was hung on the space stone breast on the tree, and the clouds and Jishan hugged each other tightly. Although a vine and a small beast hugging each other looked a bit awkward, you could see their shock. In the bowl under the space stone milk, there is actually half a bowl of spiritual springs. How could there be so many spiritual springs just now? Looking again, it turns out that the stone milk dripping down the spiritual spring has accelerated, almost one drop after another. Is this also the reason for the power of the divine beads? Thinking about the rumors that the divine beads contain endless vitality and aura, and then looking at the vibrant space, only this reason can explain why the space stone milk has changed so much. It's a good thing. This is a good thing. You won't have to worry about the spiritual spring running out in the future. However, One bowl will definitely not work now and you will need to change it to another basin. Otherwise, it will be full after a while and it will be wasted if it flows out. Thinking of this, she immediately dug out the porcelain basin she used to cook at home, found the largest one, picked up the bowl with her mind, put the basin directly under the bowl, and continued to put the bowl inside. Looking again, she used the practice room built for her by her master as a residence. It was now more lifelike, surrounded by green plants, but the green plants were so lush that they covered the space between her residence and the kitchen. She used her mind to clear out an open space as her activity space, which made it look like a secluded paradise. By the way, it would be better if there were a few peach blossom trees. After a while, Xianxia came back to her senses. Where is the divine bead? Hurry to look for the divine bead, and find that there is no divine bead in Pangu space. Looking at the divine consciousness again, the divine consciousness has returned to normal, and there is no trace of the divine bead. The divine pearl won't be integrated with Pangu space, right? Xianxia quickly checked the Pangu flower brand on her chest, and was relieved when she saw the divine bead on the heart of the flower. It turned out that she had returned to the Pangu flower. Looking carefully, it seems that the divine beads have not changed much, they are still purple beads. Because the refining was successful, Xianxia's consciousness could easily enter the divine bead at this time. The divine bead was dim and filled with purple aura. This aura was the same as the purple light aura that erupted in the divine consciousness before. Is this the power that makes Pangu space come alive? Could it be that the opportunity to refine the divine beads is to help me activate the space? What if the person who refines the divine beads doesn't have space? Is it possible that the divine bead can create a space? Xianxia was extremely confused. What she is even more confused about is what is the use of the current divine beads. Could it be that the only function left is to decorate the Pangu flower brand? No, there is still a lot of power in the divine beads. Xianxia looked at the 3 5-element beads of wood, water, and fire, and thought, if she collected the other 2 5-element beads, would something magical happen? However, the 3 5-elements pearls were all obtained in the Tianqian continent. I don't know if the other 2 are also in the Tianqian continent. If so, she really can't collect them all. I haven't heard that you can go back after leaving the lower continent. Well, it depends on the chance. If you are really destined to the 5 elements pearl, you will definitely meet it. By the way, isn't it said that after the divine beads are refined, cultivation will be easy? If so, she will indeed take advantage of it. Let Pangu space become a real small world, and cultivation will be easier. What opportunity is greater than this? When Xianxia thought about it, she suddenly felt very satisfied. The consciousness returned to the Pangu space again, and he carefully looked at his own small world, and the smile on his face became bigger and bigger. After looking at it for a long time, she suddenly felt that although Pangu space was no different from a small world, she intuitively felt that there was something missing, but she never thought about it. Since she couldn't think of it, Xianxia didn't think about it either. Anyway, she was very satisfied with the current Pangu space compared to before. The fragrance falls ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 257. Those medicinal materials can grow without her using the power of wood, and they grow very well. Living in such a beautiful space will be very comfortable in the future. After there were wind, rain, and snow in the space, the 4 seasons became obvious. It was the time when summer was about to turn into autumn, and it was when the plants were at their most luxuriant. She thought she would have time to see if there was anything in the mountains on the other side of the river. Fruit trees, if any, have any fruits ripe. After getting over the excitement and calming down, Xianxia realized that she was in the snowfield and was looking for her own opportunity to leave the snowfield. How long has it been since then? Is Jiju's Hong still there? His consciousness retreated from the Pangu space. He opened his eyes and found that there was snow in front of him. It was a bit difficult to open his eyes. He wanted to raise his hand, only to find that he was wrapped in snow. What was going on? Could it be that he was being wrapped in snow? Buried in snow? She hadn't noticed that the snow was so solid before. She actually didn't even raise her hands. She felt that she was still sitting cross-legged in the cultivation position, and her dantian was still absorbing the spiritual energy in the snow. She was surprised to find that she could do it now without using her spiritual consciousness. Absorbing the spiritual energy in the snow. What happened? Haven't it only been practicing for a few days? Although she also knew that it was not a short time, it was not like she didn't know that such a big change had happened, right? She twisted around hard and bumped into the person behind her. Only then did she remember that Xuanhuan was sitting back to back with her. I didn't expect he was still there. She didn't dare to move. They were all buried so deep in the snow. It showed that time was not short, which meant that she had entered the realm, and Xuanhuan had also entered the realm. Xuanhuan may not necessarily wake up from his realm after he wakes up. If he interrupts his opportunity, then the gain outweighs the loss. Therefore, she continued to sit cross-legged without daring to move. Since you no longer need your spiritual consciousness to absorb spiritual energy, you can continue to absorb spiritual energy. There is still a little regret in my heart. After all, using spiritual consciousness to absorb spiritual energy can also strengthen spiritual consciousness. Just look at the doubled spiritual consciousness and you will know that the effect is not so good. However, greed is not enough. She is not a greedy person, and she is already very satisfied with her current harvest. Concentrating on absorbing spiritual energy, Xianxia discovered that although she had mainly been refining the divine beads this month, she had not stopped practicing. At first, she was tired and rested to restore her consciousness. Later, she didn't know from that day, she no longer needs rest. At this moment, she discovered that her dantian was actually filled with the spiritual energy from the snowflakes. The lush Wollongan tree seems to have grown again and become more lush. When you broke through the clan level before, the spiritual root tree didn't change so much. Looking at the spiritual energy in her dantian, Xianxia felt worried again. There was so much spiritual energy, why not break through and advance? Could it be that her path of cultivation is accompanied by uncertain and unpredictable results? She feels that she has never been normal in her cultivation. Sigh, after sighing heavily in her heart, Xianxia accepted her fate and began to absorb the spiritual energy. Since the spiritual energy was full like this and she was not promoted, she should continue to absorb the spiritual energy. Anyway, Xuanhuan was still in the realm. Besides, it seemed that every time she advanced, she would advance after absorbing overloaded spiritual energy, and then advance to several levels as soon as she advanced. I don't know if I will be promoted like this after arriving in the higher continent. This will not be known until promotion. Xianxia once again began to practice calmly. Although she did not enter the realm this time, her practice was still progressing steadily. Time passed very quickly during practice. When Xianxia could no longer absorb the spiritual energy into her dantian, she suddenly felt that her body was very light, as if she was about to float. She stopped practicing, opened her eyes, and found that her body was indeed floating upward. Because it was buried in the snow, the speed was a bit slow. It is not comfortable to forcefully push the snow away with your head. The snow is too hard. Now she knew why she didn't sink into the snow when she stepped on it, because the snow was hard enough. What's going on with me now? What does this uncontrollable body floating upward mean? As for Xuanhuan, he floated away on his own. Would he be anxious if he couldn't find her? At this time, she was already 1 meter high from the snow. She turned around and saw Xuanhuan sitting there with his back to her, motionless, even though there was snow blocking her. He was still in the realm, and Yan Xianglou did not dare to call him rashly. She was worried that interrupting his realm would be detrimental to him. What should she do? Her body has already risen 2 meters. She hasn't figured out a way yet. At this time, she can no longer see Jizhong. He was getting more and more anxious. At this moment, Jizhong's voice came, "Can't you absorb the spiritual energy in your danshan?" Yan Xianglou felt relieved. He woke up in time. Hearing what he said, he was just like himself. Yan Xianglou said quickly, "Yes, it is floating upward now. What's going on? This should be the opportunity we had in the snow field. The opportunity for everyone who comes here should be the same. It just depends on whether you can find a way to absorb spiritual energy and get the opportunity. I estimate that even if you can't find a way to absorb spiritual energy, you should be able to by leaving the snow field. I just missed such a good opportunity to practice and improve my cultivation." Jizhong told Yan Xianglou what he was thinking. This is what he figured out after he could no longer absorb spiritual energy and his body floated. If they can't find a way to absorb the spiritual energy, they should be sent away before they freeze to death. After all, if they can come to the higher continent, heaven will not kill people here so unkindly. "Then are we leaving the snowy field now?" Yan Xianglou blinked. "Probably, haven't you noticed? After we came here, we automatically ignored that we could fly in the air and kept walking," Jizhong reminded her. Yan Xianglou was startled, but no, if Jizhong hadn't reminded her, she wouldn't have even thought that they could fly in the air. "It's so magical here," Yan Xianglou said with emotion. Jizhong smiled and said, "Don't think too much. My danshan is saturated with spiritual energy now. I think that as soon as we go out, the first thing we will face is promotion. We'd better be prepared to advance." He didn't know where he was going and whether anyone was there. If someone like the previous male master was there, it would be very detrimental to them. Protecting yourself is the first priority. If someone can suppress it for a while, find an opportunity to leave and find a safe place before advancing, Jizhong said again. He was very worried about Yu Xianglou. Yan Xianglou understood what he meant. "I understand. Even if she had Pangu space, she would not be able to go in when there were people around. She prayed in her heart that it would be best to go to a deserted place." The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 258. While the two were talking, Yan Xianglou came out from under the snow first. It was dark outside at this time. Judging from the intensity of the wind and snow, it should be midnight. Yan Xianglou felt relieved. It was a good time to choose this moment. No matter where he went, no one was outside. After breaking through the thick snow, Yan Xianglou floated upward much faster. When he lowered his head, he could see nothing but the vast wind and snow, and Jizhong could not see anything either. "Jizhong, I can't see you anymore," Yan Xianglou shouted loudly. Jizhong's voice came, "Concentrate on advancing. We'll meet you when we go out." "Okay," Yan Xianglou responded. Actually, Jizhong was not sure where they would be when they went out and whether they would appear in the same place. But the most important thing now is promotion. He doesn't want to distract Yan Xianglou and affect the effect of her promotion. After hearing Jizhong's words, Yan Xianglou averted her gaze and allowed herself to float upwards. As expected, her speed became faster and faster, and she could see nothing but the vast wind and snow around her. After a moment, a very bright white light appeared, which was very dazzling. She instinctively closed her eyes and stretched out a hand to block the white light. White light flashed past, and she felt her body falling downwards before she opened her eyes. She suddenly opened her eyes and looked down. Although it was midnight, there was half a moon hanging in the night sky, so she could still check the situation below. Below is a vast oasis, with lush wild grass stretching into the distance. Because it is night, it is difficult to see clearly from too far away. There are wild grass as far as the eye can see. The surrounding wind is warm, and there is not a single snowflake. This sudden change of scenery made her froze for a moment. Looking at the ground getting closer and closer to her, she remembered that she was falling and would fall to the ground if she didn't take measures. Although there are thick weeds below, falling on it is not a good feeling. Xianxia quickly jumped into the air and narrowly missed the weeds. A little later, she actually fell onto them. Who knew if there was anything underneath the weeds? Fortunately, you can fly in the air here, unlike in the snow field, where they seem to have forgotten that they can fly in the air. She breathed a long sigh of relief, and she immediately felt that the spiritual energy in her dantian could no longer be suppressed. She used her spiritual consciousness to check the area. There was no human aura, not even the aura of spiritual beasts and monsters. It could be said that there was no aura of life except for the weeds and her. There was no need to worry about any dangers during the promotion. I don't know if Xuanhuan will come here later. There were weeds all down there, and there was no better place for her to stay. Promotion was imminent, so she simply stopped looking for a place and landed directly on the weeds. But there is no actual pressing of the weeds. Instead, they are suspended on the surface of the weeds, sitting cross-legged, and start to advance. She didn't know how long it took to refine the divine beads and absorb the spiritual energy in the snow field. The training time always passed very quickly. In her opinion, she had just broken through the sect level and was about to advance again. I always feel that as long as I break through the level of Panguhui Kai Kung Fu, it will be easy to advance. In the eyes of the people of Tianqian continent, her cultivation level was unattainable in her lifetime. She was arranged by Xuanhuan and absorbed enough spiritual energy before she could even react. She did not encounter any obstacles when breaking through, and came to everyone in Tianqian continent. The longing for a higher continent. Now it's time to advance again. In the night, under the moonlight, the fiery red figure was quietly suspended on the weeds. Her smooth black hair was flying behind her, dancing in a soft arc. Her dark eyelashes were like cattail fans. Her beautiful appearance made her look so beautiful at this moment. Her quietness in the night adds a sense of mystery. The wind and grass stirred, but the people did not move. For a moment, the light of promotion fell and enveloped Xianxia. Xianxia was still a little worried when she thought that her nascent soul was wrapped like an egg and wondered if it would affect her promotion. While advancing, he looked inside his dantian and stared closely at the nascent soul egg. The nascent soul wrapped in the dantian does not affect the promotion. The pangu flower is spinning on the golden egg. Although the nascent soul is wrapped, it is still powerful in absorbing spiritual energy. The spiritual root tree is also stretching, as if it is about to grow again. The spiritual energy in the dantian was absorbed by the spiritual root tree and the yuanying. The yuanying was okay and absorbed the spiritual energy very gently. The spiritual root tree seemed to be a bottomless pit, swallowing the spiritual energy. Xianxia felt that this promotion was different from the past. There was no such big movement when the spirit root tree was promoted in the past. Originally, her spiritual roots were the 5 spiritual roots condensed together. They looked thick, but one of them individually was not very strong. But now, although they are still twisted together like twists, one of the individual spiritual roots is also very strong. So much so that the entire spirit root tree looks several times thicker. Xianxia didn't have time to think about why yuanying was wrapped like an egg, but her spiritual root suddenly became so much thicker, and her promotion had already begun. She started to advance with all her concentration, not daring to slack off at all. After all, this was her first promotion since coming to the higher continent, and it was still under so many unknown circumstances. The first, second, and third levels of the clan were advanced very easily without any obstacles, and they only stopped after advancing to the third level in a row. Fortunately, the advancement to the clan level is the same as before, and there is no change. If it were the same as in the fantasy novels she read before, it would be troublesome if she had to go through some kind of thunder catastrophe, and it would be impossible not to alarm people. After the promotion, Yanxiangluo suddenly felt that the aura on her body became much stronger, but now her heart is very calm. Because of the repeated blows, she can now treat the promotion with a calm mind. Because she knew in her heart that no matter what level of cultivation she advanced to, there would be a higher level waiting for her, unless she could reach the highest level of cultivation in the advanced continent, but she still didn't know what kind of level that level of cultivation would be. Because of the existence of climbing, there is no need to waste time thinking about it. Looking around with beautiful almond eyes, Ji Zhong was nowhere to be seen. My heart sank. Did they come out from a different place? It will not be easy to find people like this, after all, they don't know anything about this place. Yanxiangluo thought for a while. No matter whether they came out to the same place or not, she didn't want to change places tonight. It just so happened that there was no one now. She could go into the space, take a good look at the space, and then sleep comfortably. If Ji Zhong hadn't shown up tomorrow morning, she would stop waiting for him and leave here to find a place with people to inquire about the higher continent. In this situation, as for Ji Zhong, we can only meet again by chance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 259. She also wanted to see her parents and master as soon as possible. After thinking clearly, she went directly into the space. But when she entered the space, she found that it was also a dark sky at this time, and there was also a half-moon hanging in the sky. Ruanxiangluo slapped her forehead and forgot about space. Because of the divine bead, there are 4 seasons and the difference between day and night. Now it seems that the time in the space is synchronized with the outside. Her original plan to take a good look at the space was ruined. Although there was a moon, she was not curious enough to explore the space overnight. When I came to the space stone milk, the bowl was already full, and the overflowing spiritual spring had already filled the bottom of the basin. How long has it been? If this continues, this basin can last for 1 day at most. Thinking about the time it took hundreds of years to fill a bowl of space stone milk, but now it can be poured to fill a bowl in 1 day. This speed difference is not ordinary. What kind of luck do you have? Even she herself felt that her luck was not very good. What should I do? It is best to build a large pool in the space so that it can be used for a long time. Otherwise, her basin will not be enough, and the spiritual spring will overflow to the ground and it will be wasted. Sigh, she never would have imagined that 1 day there would be so much water that there would be so much water that there would be no room to put it away. But the problem now is that she can't build a pool. She silently took out a larger basin for spare use. This basin was used by her family for laundry. Although using it to hold spiritual spring water was a bit blasphemous to the sacred spiritual spring water in the hearts of the world, there is no other better way now. It can be used with some scrubbing. Looking at the clouds and covering the sky, they were still practicing on the stone milk. She did not disturb them and went back to rest in the boudoir converted from the practice room built by her master. Lying on the soft quilt, she murmured softly, "Mom and Dad, Xiaoluo is here." She went to sleep with a smile. In her dream, she found her parents, and the family of 3 hugged each other happily. At this time, Ji Zhong, who had just been promoted, was looking for Yanxiangluo. He was in a desert at this time, and he arrived here as soon as he came out. The only thing that was the same as the place where Yanxiangluo was the half-moon hanging in the night sky. When he came out, his spiritual consciousness reached the limit, and he didn't see Yanxiangluo. He couldn't suppress the spiritual energy, so he had to advance first. After the promotion, he started looking for Xianxia again, but he couldn't find anyone after searching for a long time. He understood that the place where the two came out should be different. It was difficult to identify the direction in the desert at night. Fortunately, there was no other danger here. He simply stopped walking and sat cross-legged to continue practicing and stabilize his cultivation. One night passed, and Xianxia had a comfortable sleep. When she woke up, the space was already bright. She stretched out, walked out of the room, and looked at the mountains in the distance. She had an idea that she had already arrived in the mountains. Taking a deep breath, it was such a comfortable spiritual energy. Such pure and rich spiritual energy made her want to stay in the space and practice without being able to get out. But that was impossible, she still had to go find her parents. His spiritual consciousness searched in the mountains to see what was there. Sure enough, he saw all kinds of spiritual plants, fruits, and vegetables, and his almond-shaped eyes turned into crescents. In the future, there will be a blessing. In the gods who need to be planted, the spirit plant that is deliberately planted is everywhere. The fruit trees are all spiritual planting. Unfortunately, although some fruit trees have fruits, they are not mature and cannot be eaten. As long as you have it, it will be fine. When the fruit is ripe, you can eat the spiritual fruit anytime and anywhere. Back in the kitchen, she was in a good mood and made breakfast. She stopped practicing when she smelled the aroma of rice, and swooped to the dining table. "Master, do you have mine?" Xuanhuan looked at the food on the table with greedy eyes. Xianxia knew that it, a snack food, could not resist the temptation. How could it forget it? She pushed a plate of fried meat in front of it and said, "This is yours." "Master, you are so kind, I like you the most." Xianxia's lips twitched. "Do you like her the most?" Forget it, she still knows herself. What Xuanhuan likes most is definitely her cooking skills. But the cooking skills are also my own, and indirectly I like her, which makes me feel more comfortable. After breakfast, Xianxia came out of the space. After checking carefully with his consciousness, he still didn't notice anyone. He was sure that Xuanhuan was not here. Looking around, there is nothing but a stretch of mountains in the distance directly in front of me. It seems that I can only go to the other side of the mountain to have a look, rise in the sky, and ride on the green waves. At the same time, after making sure that there was no Ruoxiang in the desert, Xuanhuan also saw the continuous mountains, so he rose into the air and headed towards the mountains. Xianxia came to the foot of the mountain and fell down. There was nothing he could do if he didn't fall down. There were restrictions on the mountain and he couldn't fly in the air. She is very interested in this limitation now. When will she be strong enough not to be controlled by this limitation? After falling, a winding stone staircase appeared on the originally roadless mountain. Without even thinking about it, I knew that this was the only way to go up the mountain. If I wanted to leave here, I should have to climb over this mountain. It seemed that this was a rule, and it was a rule that she couldn't resist. Without giving it a second thought, she just stepped onto the stone steps and walked up the mountain. She wanted to see what else was on the mountain, so she had to walk up it. It was only during this walk that I discovered that there was resistance on the stone steps going up the mountain. The higher she went up, the greater the resistance. This resistance would stabilize her cultivation after advancement. Sure enough, it was a link after link. There was a faint aroma permeating the air. As an alchemist, she couldn't even tell what the aroma was coming from. There were no special plants around, they were all known to her, and none of them gave off this kind of fragrance. But Xianxia knew in her heart that this kind of fragrance would not appear for no reason. When she was analyzing the ingredients and functions of the fragrance, scenes suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. It is her experience from childhood to adulthood, because her soul is separated and she lives in two worlds. Therefore, her experience before the age of 13 is chaotic. In fact, it is not chaos. It is just that the experience of the two worlds unfolds at the same time when she is 1 year old. When you come out, you will first experience the experience of this world, and then the experience of another world. In this way, until you are 13 years old, you will all experience the experience of this world. Xianxia did not relax her vigilance, but because the scenes that appeared were all real and she did not feel any illusion, she did not resist and reject the appearance of this image. She resisted the resistance and walked up the mountain while watching the scene before my eyes. Memories from another world clearly appeared before her eyes again. She didn't understand why these memories appeared in front of her. She knew very well that this was not a fantasy, it was really just a reenactment of her life experience. The Fragrance Falls Ninefold. Author, Midday Sunday. Chapter 260. Chapter 260 Danger is Coming. Although she didn't know the reason, it was a rare opportunity to review her life in such an unmissable way, so she still looked at it very seriously. Not for anything else, just to see if I have any regrets about my past self. The image ends when she flies into the chasm. Xianxia discovered that in another life, apart from being in poor health and not being able to do many of the things she wanted to do, she really had no other regrets. However, I actually have quite a lot of regrets in this life. When I was a child, I had two regrets. The first one was that my talent was not good. I actually felt very inferior. After all, my parents were both geniuses. Parents are the first idols in a child's life. But when I was a child, she felt that her talent was not good and she would never be able to catch up with her parents' achievements, let alone surpass them. Even though her parents told her that she had great talent, but the opportunity hadn't come yet, she was still young and didn't quite believe what her parents said. She only saw that she had not been promoted for 10 years, and she thought in her heart that she was not qualified. Really useless material. The second regret is the disapproval of her grandparents. In fact, she was really looking forward to having many relatives. At that time, she didn't know that her grandparents' home was not hers. When she grew older, she regretted that her parents were not closely related. Otherwise, why would she have to be separated from her parents at the age of 10? Children from other families would still act like a spoiled child in front of their parents, but she had to make a living on her own. When she went to the royal training place of the Tianshan Empire, she actually knew in her heart that it was the Yu family who wanted her life, and she was determined to die in retribution. She had never wanted to go to Qingyun sect in the first place. Her plan was to go to Xianyun sect, but she was delayed because she had not made a breakthrough in cultivation. I didn't expect that her family would be so cruel and secretly signed her up. If she didn't sign up, she would be dead. You can imagine how broken she felt at that time. No matter how many life-saving things her parents left for her, they would never be able to use them all. The moment she fell off the cliff, she thought she was certain to die, but she didn't expect that her soul from another life would just return. Although she later realized after reading the letter left by her father that all this was planned by her mother, she did not know it before. The helplessness and despair before her death once again unfolded before her eyes. Xianxia's tears fell. At this time, she was already standing on the top of the mountain. She could see a large town below. The road down the mountain was still winding stone steps, but she was not in the mood at this time. Go down the mountain. With no one around, Xianxia allowed herself to cry loudly, venting out all the hardships and grievances she had experienced after her parents left and after her soul returned. She squatted on the ground, hugging her knees and sobbing. When Jizhong walked out of the desert, he saw the girl in the red dress squatting and hugging her knees, crying bitterly. His whole body was filled with despair and helplessness, and his heart sank suddenly. Seeing her like this, she was not surprised or puzzled at all. After all, he had just experienced it once. It's just that I'm used to seeing her calm and composed, so it hurts to see her collapse like this. But he knew why she was crying, because when he went up the mountain, he also saw his life since he had memories. Although he didn't cry, he felt uncomfortable. His experience was not much better than hers, but he was a man. When a man sheds tears, he just doesn't shed them easily. But Yan Xianglou is a girl, so it is not easy to persist until now. The psychological pressure she endures is not something that ordinary people can bear. It will do her good to cry. Therefore, although Xuanhuan wanted to comfort her, he still stood quietly not far from her and did not go over to disturb her. Fen Miao looked at the town below, thinking about what they should do if they went down. He knew that he and Yan Xianglou were not in the same place when they came out of the snow field. The snow field was the initial place of experience for people like them from the lower continent. It is an opportunity to improve your cultivation and state of mind. The places they come out are different, which may be related to your life experience and different moods. He appeared in the desert because his heart itself was desolate, and the only piece of green was the fragrance. So when he came out of the desert, he was not as excited as Yan Xianglou. On the contrary, it was because he had seen his own experience and understood his own heart better, so after he came out, he felt very relaxed. He can understand that Yan Xianglou is so excited. After all, her experiences are different. She is still a girl and has higher needs for affection. It was because his parents were both dead and the royal family had no true feelings to speak of, so when he was 6 years old, he knew that he was not related. Yan Xianglou was different from him. She had not known before that the Yan family were not her blood relatives. In addition, she knew very well that her parents were still alive but could not meet because of some irresistible reasons. Various emotions of worry and longing accompanied her. Growing up, now I once again see my own experience as a bystander, and I naturally feel deeply. It will be of great benefit to her to vent her anger by crying now. It doesn't matter where she appears. The two of them stood on the top of the mountain today to say goodbye to their past lives, and going down to the bottom of the mountain was the beginning of their new lives. Yan Xianglou cried heartily, her body and mind feeling relaxed as never before. In fact, she noticed Xuanhuan when he first appeared, but she did not suppress her emotions because of it. She knew very well that if she didn't vent her emotions now, she might not have a chance to vent them in the future. This is also a kind of experience, a mental experience that helps them reach a higher realm. This kind of experience can only be effective when they come from a lower continent to a higher continent. No matter how much I experience in the higher continent in the future, I will never have such feelings again. Therefore, she allowed herself to show her true emotions in front of him for once. Even so, she was still a little embarrassed and didn't look at Xuanhuan when she stood up. Xuanhuan looked at her red eyes and felt distressed, but he felt that she was even cuter like this, and his heart was beating faster and faster. There is a town down there. Our experience in coming to the higher continent should be over, Xuanhuan said naturally, as if he didn't see the pain she looked just now. Hearing this, Yan Xianglou looked at the town below and felt a little more at ease. I'm afraid there is a reason why this town was built here. We still have to be more cautious. Xuanhuan agreed, there should be only one way out here. The way that man showed us should be directly here, which means that we will miss the experience of the snow field, but now it also means that his master it should be here. It means that the real danger is coming. End of this chapter.